Good day, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. As promised, this is just a pre-recording on our Learning Unit 1, Theme 2, which takes us to Lecture 2. This wouldn't be a long session. The theme itself is a very short theme with a majority focus on Porter's value chain. So what exactly is Porter's value chain? The value chain activities that's associated with it, and then going into logistics management and thereof some components of logistics management. So very, very short theme, which is perfect for the recording. So I could just talk. In our next session, which is our live lecture, we're going to go through elements of it where I'll take sort of real life examples and marry it in with our Learning Unit 2. Okay, so firstly, we'll start with our Porter's value chain. Sort of an idea of what Porter's value chain is, or your generic competitive strategy as it speaks on, is there's three different components to it, which is cost leadership, differentiation, as well as focus. So basically, what your Porter's value chain is it basically determines sort of your profitability, whether it's above or below what your industry average is. And the basis of it is the average profitability in the long run is sustainable when you have competitive advantage. Competitive advantage meaning that you are the best in the market or in the industry with a particular product or service. And the two basic types of competitive advantage that a firm can possess is low cost or differentiation. And it can be combined with various scopes, which the activity seeks to achieve. And the focus has two variants, which is cost, leadership, differentiation, as well as focus. So cost leadership, as we start. Basically, an organization sets out to become the lowest cost producer in its industry. And it's depending on the structure of the industry, obviously. It may include going into elements of having economies of scale, meaning higher volumes at a lower cost, having proprietary technology, or preferential access to different sort of raw materials or various other factors. A low-cost producer must find the best way to exploit all of its sources for a better cost advantage. So to be the cheapest in the market, what can they do to exploit as much raw materials at the cheapest price that it can, so that its landed cost or selling price is the cheapest, which gives them a competitive advantage in the industry. Differentiation is basically when an organization seeks out to be unique in the industry, which is basically valued by buyers. If one or two of the attributes of differentiation that buyers require, it's perceived as being important, and then if an organization uniquely positions themselves to meet the needs of that buyer or that customer. So it's basically rewarded with, because of the uniqueness of the product, it's rewarded with a premium price. So it's a lot more expensive, but it's different and it's unique. And then we have focus, which is basically having a choice of a narrow competitive scope within the industry. So an organization chooses to focus on a segment or a group of segments in the industry, and it tailors the strategy to serve that exclusion or that group of people. So the focus strategy is you either have a targeted segment or your product is different to a specific target segment. And we'll share some examples as we go along in our next session. But this is basically Porter's value chain. Take note of this, because a lot of times case studies can easily be developed from Porter's value chain, and based on this, you'll be able to understand exactly where you see that specific customer sitting in. Is it cost leadership? Is it differentiation? Is it focus? Or is it, having a broad scope and a narrow scope? Are you doing differentiation and focus? Are you doing cost and focus? You're doing cost leadership and then differentiation. So it's understanding where in the quadrants you are sitting from an organization perspective. The difference between sort of your value chain as well as your supply chain is the supply chain has a set of 3 or more organizations that are linked um, by either an upstream of products or a downstream of products. Is it different services? Is it finances? Is it information from the source to a customer? The supply chain is a subset of different value chains. So you may have multiple value chains in a supply chain. You may also have multiple supply chains within an organization. All people within an organization form part of the value chain. And the value, an organizational level in the value chain is a lot broader than the supply chain because it has all of those sort of activities in it. And this is sort of where we take it when we talk about the value chain of it. So let's start with the support activities. Okay. So the support activities within the Porter's value chain assist with primary activities, which forms the sort of foundation or the top part of any organization. It's, for instance, the firm infrastructure, which allows it to maintain its daily operations. So it can include line managers, admin managers, financial managers. These are key individuals or positions that create value for an organization. And it includes capital equipment, operational activities, etc. Then we have human resources management, which is one of your support activities as well. And this is to develop the organization's workforce, so the people that contribute towards their value chain. So is this motivation, wellness, mentoring, training, development, compensation, retaining of staff. So all of these components fall within human resource management. Then we have technology development, and this is can be IT related, technology, innovation. If you have new products that you want to introduce into your product line, what is the development of those new products? How can you best optimize an existing line or an existing supply chain? All of this falls within technology development. And then procurement. Procurement is basically relating to obtaining goods and services so that the organization can supply the customer. So this is basically negotiating or entering into an agreement with various suppliers, negotiate when is the best time for it to arrive at the best prices. So a lot of procurement functions now, we look at 3 suppliers, we look at what the service is, we look at what the price is, and then we shortlist them to who we are using. Your supplier needs to marry the same sort of cultural concepts as you. So if you are stuck in a situation where you have a line stopper, how can you best get a part here as quick as possible? Can your supplier fulfill that? So from a procurement perspective, they are one of the building blocks to get you to achieve a value creation within an organization. So your primary activity as part of the value chain is inbound logistics. So this is receiving, inbounding, storage, and any internal distribution, mainly from a raw material perspective. And the relationship is held from a supplier level, because you obviously need to get the raw materials in order for you to create that product. And this is where inbound logistics sit. Within inbound logistics, you also have production, where it is the actual production of goods into semi-finished or finished goods. Then you have outbound logistics or operations as well, which helps you convert that product from input to output. Outbound logistics is delivering the product to the customer. So this is any sort of storage, 3PL, transportation, logistics, anything that involves with getting a product from one point to another point. This is where outbound logistics comes into play. Marketing and sales, this is all the process related to putting the product and service on the map or in the market. It is how do we now generate enough customer relationship? How do we have a sufficient and efficient pipeline? How do we have more customers on our base as compared to our competitor? What is our competitive advantage? And how do we then create an advantage for our customer? So this is marketing and sales, and it's promotion of your product itself. Services, and this includes all the activities that maintain the value of the product as soon as your relationship has been developed. So is it a relationship with the supplier? Is it a relationship with the customer? Is it now reverse logistics where customer services now comes into play, where if a customer receives a product and the quality is not great or they need to now return it, what can we now do? So this basically falls part of the value chain. So as we spoke about Porter's generic strategies as well as a value chain, how do you now become a cost leader, differentiator, and focus, then taking you into value chain activities, making sure that you have your support functions aligned as well as what your primary activities are, which gives you enough margin. So your margin needs to be great on both ends, from a support perspective as well as a primary perspective, because at the end of the day, your focus is primarily on how do we make money? How do we generate as much business as possible in order for us to maintain a good profitability? How do we relate to business, making sure that the cash flow is sufficient within the business and rolling through with profitability on the balance sheet. So this is just value chain activities and how it's created. The fact that the process itself, you plan for having individuals at every stage step of the way in primary functions as well as support functions in order for you to convert a product from a raw material to a final or a semi-finished good. Okay, then we move over to logistics management. So I'm going to read, but logistics management is part of the supply chain process that plans, implements, and controls the efficient, effective flow of storage of goods and services from origin to destination to meet the customer's requirements. So all in all, it's making sure that your raw material is converted into a finished or semi-finished good and is then delivered to your customer according to what their specifications are. So if you're going differentiation route, what is the different or uniqueness of the product? If you're going focus to that specific target, what is the differentiation to them? If you're going cost leadership, are you getting it at a cheaper raw material so you end up at a cheaper finished good or a final product perspective? So some of the activities that fall part of logistics management is, or the logistical system itself, is customer services, demand forecasting. So from a customer services perspective, how do we make sure that the process is as streamlined as possible so that if there is a problem at any stage of the way, a customer can come back and a reform can be done or a requisition can be done to the customer. Demand forecasting, how are we now forecasting what we are going to be producing for? So if it is in a specific season or a specific time where we are going through a Mother's Day or Easter or anything else, how do we then make sure that that demand is equated for? From an inventory management perspective, how do you now manage inventory to a point where you don't have goods that are you're over you're over procuring goods or over producing goods so that you end up with a surplus of goods, and to make sure that you don't under supply goods so you don't end up with a shortage of goods. So making sure that from an inventory management perspective, you have just the right amount of product and you don't have an oversupply or an undersupply. Communicating logistically, this is where the vehicle is, this is when your shipment will be delivered, etc. Material handling, and this is more so from how do we handle the product when it is in a storage facility? Are we moving the product from production into a 3PL? Is it a 3PL on-site? Is it a 3PL off-site? How are we now handling this? Are we processing orders? Are we processing it in a streamlined way so that we can get value for money at the end of the day? Because time is money, and we want to make sure that we get all our resources done within a specific time. So if a customer has to order an item today, we are processing the item today for delivery tomorrow or the day after. So how are we now processing it? Making sure that our items are packaged. If it is packaged, it needs to be packaged in a way that we have limited damages. Parts and service support, if there is a case where we have products that we are selling that, like in an automotive industry, if you now need a part for a specific vehicle, is it readily available, or is the process easier for you to get this part? Is the service component then easier so you could service your vehicle? As well as plant and warehousing site selection, where are we situated? Are we situated in an urban area, in a site level area, in a rural area? Where is the best possible way for us to be situated? And I think the process from a logistics management perspective, we need to understand that logistics exists to move and position inventory to make sure that we achieve the desired time, place, and position, so that it benefits us in terms of a reduced cost. And we need to make sure that logistics involves the management of key functions within a supply chain. For a supply chain to realize the maximum strategic benefits from logistics, the full range of work must be integrated. So the next one here that we're going to go through is the sort of visual illustration of an integrated logistics facility or within an organization. And this includes order processing, inventory, transportation, warehousing or material handling, packaging, etc., as well as facility network is part of the integrated logistics management system. And this creates various capabilities that we need to achieve the value that comes out of having a logistics system. And to achieve this within a supply chain context, the objectives that we want to achieve within the integrated logistics system is responsiveness. So we want to understand as quickly as possible what went wrong or what went right. Any reduction in variances. So we don't want a possibility where we have an oversupply or an undersupply of goods. If we are delivering 5 boxes, we need to make sure we're delivering 5 boxes and we're not doing 4 boxes. So we want the reduction in as much variances as possible. Inventory reduction or problems. And we want a better quality and life cycle support, just to make sure that all in all we are maintaining the correct integrated logistics management system to make sure that the flow is done correctly. You can see from the specific diagram where integrated logistics, it feeds into order processing, feeds into material warehousing and material handling, packaging. That feeds into the facility network being the actual facility, whether it is a production facility, a 3PL, or a warehouse facility. Transport required in every step of the way. Inventory, which is your actual product required at every step of the way, whether this is in raw material stage or in finished stage. Order processing coming in from every direction as well. So you can see how everything is linked when it comes to logistics management and the value that it then does create. And then we have basically to close off what logistics management, I did mention in the beginning that this is a very, very short learning unit. And I'm glad we kept it as a recording so that, we can spend more time in our live sessions going through everything else in terms of examples and real life scenarios. But the aim of logistics, well, from a supply chain perspective, it is a system of organizations, people, technology, activity, information, and resources that's involved in moving a product from supplier to a customer. And I think we went over this when we spoke about the Porter's link and all of the links that is then combined together. The objective at the end is to maximize the overall value that is generated within an organization. And supply chain management is integrated of key business processes, basically from a raw material extraction perspective, right down through to a final customer or end customer, to making sure that they have a full product. And all in all, this includes processing, transportation, storage, all of this before the final stage. The foundation of supply chain management is your purchasing, operations, human resources, distribution, and process integration, which we did go through. Those are a lot of your support functions. And the key to strategic fit is ensuring that your supply chain is as responsive as possible, and it's consistently responsive with your customers' needs. What can you supply? What is the demand from the market? And trying to eradicate as much uncertainty as possible, which is very difficult in this day and age because customers' preferences is I like it today, I don't like it tomorrow. So it's understanding where the preferences are sitting, what is the demand, and what is us as an organization able to do from a supply perspective. Some of the current trends in supply chain means that we want to make sure that we try and expand the supply chain as much as possible, try to make it as green as possible, and reducing as much cost so that we become a cost leader within the industry. And that basically takes us to the end of our learning unit 2, or learning unit 1 theme 2. Recording is available here. I will upload it before the end of the week on the YouTube channel. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you in our next session or live session. Thank you and cheers.